Hello, everyone. Just playing with the tech, getting set up. I'm on my phone, and yesterday it told me I had to be sideways. Now it's telling me I need to be the right way, but maybe that depends when I invite someone on. Hi, Alla. Oh, so nice to see you in here. I hope you're doing well, love. I'm going to see. I'm new to inviting people, but let me see if I can figure out how to invite Kaitlyn. Hi, Nicole. Hello, hello. If everyone wants to settle in, make sure you are... Okay, I'm not seeing Kaitlyn yet. Kaitlyn, if you're here, let me know. And I'll see if it lets me invite you. I think you do have to be logging in from your phone. That's what I realized yesterday. So I'm on my phone as well. And when I see you, I will add it. I'm going to pull it up on my computer as well, just so I can see comments. I'd love for you to ask questions while I'm talking. I'm going to keep an eye on it as best as I can. But if anyone has questions that come up, I would love to make this as interactive as possible. So please feel free to ask any questions that come up at all. Okay. Hello, hello. First of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Shelbey Moon. I am a moon cycle guide, and I am really passionate about helping womb holders. I'm working to be more inclusive because this information is not just for women. It is for anyone who holds a womb. That could be someone who is trans, someone who is non-binary, or of course, women, as well as I want to make sure that this is inclusive to people who are perimenopause or menopause or postmenopause, or like myself, breastfeeding and don't have a period right now, or have an IUD, or are pregnant. There's so many reasons why we might not have a regular cycle right now, but that doesn't actually mean that we don't have a cycle. And so that's what I'm really excited to share with you too, is that even if you don't have that regular 28, 29 day cycle, you still have an energetic cycle. Hormones are still doing things in your body. And you can still take advantage of this. And we're going to talk about this, but you're also still affected by the lunar cycle as well. So yeah, I am passionate about helping more womb holders to transform their to-do list, because what drew me to this work was, I don't know if I'd consider myself a type A personality, but I definitely have that mindset of that I always need to be doing more. I think it kind of comes with being an entrepreneur, is that like there's so many different things we can be doing, right? Between email marketing, social media, getting more visible, creating new programs. I feel like the list is just endless. And I've been in the entrepreneurial space for a long time. And even if you aren't an entrepreneur, I'm sure you can relate with like feeling like there's always so much to do. And then that can be a source of overwhelm and stress rather than an opportunity, or rather than moving forward, we procrastinate because we just feel overwhelmed by everything that we need to do. So that is what drew me to this work. No more of that. I am now leaning into the tasks that actually feel the most aligned, the most inspired in the moment, and being so much kinder with myself, which I'm going to dive in more to what that exactly looks like. Bailey, thank you for your comment. Yeah, I am working to be more inclusive. I think it's so important, and sometimes I struggle with using the right language, and so it's something that is constantly evolving for me, but I'm always striving to be better and always willing to hear and learn how I can be better. If anyone ever wants to, if I say something that maybe I should have said a different way, I'm always open to that feedback, so please always feel like you can share that with me. Kaitlyn, I'm not seeing you yet, but if you hop on, let me know and I will invite you on. Okay, so yeah, a little bit about my story. I am a new mom, and my baby is sleeping right now. So if I hear her, I might have to go run and grab her and bring her on the call. But she should be sleeping for a little bit, we hope. But I first heard about this information when I was in a women's circle, which actually Alla was in that women's circle with me at one point. If you're still watching, Alla, I just love that you're here in this group. I think that's so cool because yeah, where I first heard this information was from one of my mentors in a women's circle. And she had explained how she was using her cycle to, yay, you're still here. She explained how she was using her cycle to map out her social events, her business, her life, like her personal things, when she rested, when she took care of her budget or her finances, like literally everything had a perfect place that felt more aligned and more easy. And I was so drawn to that information. I was like, ooh, like I need this in my life. But it was all very new to me. And I was still on hormonal birth control at the time. And I decided my first step was to come off of hormonal birth control. I was inspired by the women in this circle I have no strong beliefs of whether you're on hormonal birth control or not. But for me, I was like, okay, let's experiment. Oh, I see you now, Kaitlyn. Oh, nope, I don't anymore. Let's experiment with what could happen if I stopped putting these hormones into my body and controlling my cycle. Because one thing that they also had shared is that like little things about your personality even change when you're taking hormonal birth control, and even who you're attracted to can change, who's attracted to you, which is just also wild. So that was my first step, was like, okay, I'm going to get off the hormonal birth control. When I got off the hormonal birth control, my cycle was all over the place. So, oh, here we go. Adding Kaitlyn in. So my cycle was very irregular. It was like every 90 days, I would say. And that really put a lot of resistance for me diving into this work. Hi, Kaitlyn.
Hey,
How are
how are
you?
you?
I am good. I was just getting started, just talking about kind of what's got me started on this path and in this work. Um, Sharing a little bit about how I got started with a lot of resistance to this because my periods were irregular. So I felt like I couldn't track my cycle because it was like 90 days until I had another cycle. And it just felt like, oh, I'm never going to see trends. I'm never going to be able to be like, oh yeah, day 7, this happened, because it just felt like too big of a span of time. Then the pandemic happened and I got pregnant, and I had more time on my hands. So I was working from home and I just felt like I had more control in my schedule. And so I went back to this idea again of, okay, could I use my time more efficiently? And so that's when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to look into this work even though I'm pregnant. And I learned that you can still do this work even though you're pregnant. And that's why I'm excited about sharing it, because what I've learned is that the moon can be that source to get started. So we are connected. I love calling it your moon cycle, not only because we are connected to the cycle of the moon, just like the cycle of the moon has 4 phases. We have 4 phases in our menstrual cycle, which I'm going to be diving into a lot deeper, but also because where was I going with that? We're influenced by it, but also the moon influences on us on its own. So we have our menstrual cycle that's influencing what's happening at a physical level for us, and then we have the moon, which is affecting everyone around us, which I think is really cool to look. Like, I think it's really valuable to look at where you are in your own cycle. And okay, I'm gonna have to grab Leela. And where you are in the moon cycle, because that's what's actually going to influence your relationships. Okay, I'll be right back.
No worries. Yeah, I've got little Finn with me here today as well. He's nursing, but I'm so excited that Shelby can be here and she's going to share this amazing knowledge with us because many of you know I know a lot about the moon. I'm a moonologist, but I actually haven't gotten too deep into the depths of connecting it with the menstrual cycle. Obviously, I see the beauty and know that there is knowledge there in connecting it, but it's not something I've educated myself that deeply about. So I love that Shelby's here able to address this today. And I love that you're bringing up this topic because this week I really felt called to share my free resource guide of planning for success around the waxing moon. Which, if you want that free resource guide, just type success in the comments and I'll be happy to share that. But Shelby's going to talk about this even more, how you can plan for success in any and every area of your life, essentially, when you practice with the moon, when you live your life with the moon phases, and you can do this in simple, simple ways. So I'm so excited to have you here, Shelby.
Yeah, thank you, Kaitlyn. Thanks for having me. I was hoping Leila would sleep longer, but looks like she's joining us. Um, I just saw Rebecca's comment said that she always gets hers 2 days before the full moon, which I'm going to talk about more like the red moon cycle and the white moon cycle. But yeah, I think it's very cool how we have like the moon cycle is also similar days as the menstrual cycle, which is why it's all related. And hey, Con. And also it's cool how women cycle together. And I think that is because of the influence of the moon. Like, what magic is it that you hang out with women and then they start to cycle together? It's, I believe the moon plays a big part in that. So I would love to know what your general feelings are towards your cycle. If you feel like sharing in the comments, maybe that's something that's shifted over time. If you're at this masterclass, it must mean that you're exploring the ideas of maybe working with it more. But so maybe that's shifted over time, or maybe, yeah, I know that for so many of us, oh, we got two little babies
Yeah.
here. Do you see that baby in the camera? For so many of us, our periods have been seen as a source of resentment, as something that we should ignore, that we should push through. I think of commercials by like Tampax that would be showing us to hide it, like pretend that it was sugar and hide it in our sleeves, or other things like, oh, you wouldn't even know that she's wearing white underwear and doing this sports thing, because it's this whole message of we can do anything a man does while we're bleeding. I think we've all seen that kind of that quote. And it's this idea that it shouldn't even exist. It has no value at all. We're just going to pretend we're not even on our period. It doesn't matter if we're in pain. It doesn't matter if, yeah, like we're bloating or we're uncomfortable, like we're not given menstruation sick days from work or anything like that. It's seen as a disadvantage. And so it makes sense that there's been resentment around it for many of us because we haven't been taught to appreciate it. We haven't even been taught that there is any value in it whatsoever. Rebecca said, my teenage boys know all about periods because it's normal and it's part of life. Yes, yes, mama. I love that. And so important to bring the boys into the conversation too. It's not just that we should teach our little girls about this, we should also normalize it with boys. Allison, now that I am more connected to it, it's amazing. Last year I was regular 28 days and 5-day bleed. And last year it got all messed up. I felt confusion, but yeah, that makes sense. Especially when you were so used to the normalcy of it. So something that I wanted to mention too is that it changes over time. So in this class, I'm going to be sharing with you the different archetypes, the different phases, how those different phases align with the moon, but it always shifts. And there's different layers, which I'll dive into too. But knowing that it's always going to be different. So yes, we're getting to know, okay, these are the sort of things I should do when I'm bleeding. These are the sort of things I can do when I'm in the waxing moon phase or that maiden phase. But not putting yourself in a box where you're expecting it to be the exact same every single cycle, because it's not going to be. Bailey said, it's been a long time since I menstruated, it feels like, but I used to have a lot of fear surrounding it because endometritis, severe pain. Yeah, and trying to embrace the beauty of it. So I honor that so much because it is a lot harder when we have painful periods. I will say that that is not something I've experienced, and that's why the energetics of it is more what I lean towards, is how can I like use it. But I want to share an analogy that my mentor gave that was really great. So she was saying, before we know about our cycle, it's like we're on one of those roller coasters where it's like pitch black. Like, you know, when you're like going through a cave or something and you can't see anything, and you're like getting thrown side to side. And it's just crazy chaos and you can't even like prepare for it. And then once you learn about this information, it's like the lights have come on, or you've come out of the cave. And even though you're still getting thrown side to side, you can at least like roll with it. You can like prepare yourself. And I really think that can play into, for people who have painful periods or a lot of bloating or a lot of PMS symptoms. No, this awareness isn't going to make them go away, but it is going to make it so you can better prepare yourself. Maybe you know when it's coming and you have that hot blanket ready and you have the tools that you need or the supplements that you need to prepare yourself for that period of time. Or you know that when you bleed, you're so exhausted. So you're able to actually schedule in that little time in your planner where you have some time to yourself, where you ask your partner to maybe support you with the kids so you can have a little time to rest. So it's learning to see the beauty in our cycle, even though some of it is hard. I'm not erasing any of that. Like, it can still, those physical symptoms can be hard. And there's a lot of resistance in our culture to resting. And I think that's one of the biggest things here. Learning to love and accept our cycle means learning to love and accept rest, and knowing that rest is built in monthly for a reason, so we can show up with more clarity, so we can have more presence in our life, so that when that waxing phase comes, because the new moon is related to when we're bleeding, we actually have the energy to go forward with our projects.
And I've always been curious, Shelby, I don't know if you've come across this, for women who do experience, endometriosis or a lot of pain with their menstrual cycle. I've always been curious if there's some sort of disconnect with their divine feminine energy and their divine feminine essence. Like perhaps they currently don't have a set of beliefs that allow them to lean into their intuition and to have their emotions flow and recognize the language of their emotions and what their emotions are telling them, or they just have this current system set up where maybe it's not safe to feel, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's some of that blockage there in that kind of womb space and in that chakra area, right? Your sacral
Yeah.
chakra. But again, like you, I haven't experienced severely painful menstrual cycles. So anyone who has experienced that, I'm open to hearing your experience. Like I said, I'm curious about more and diving more into that and what that is. But certainly in a lot of the work that I do, and I know Shelby does too, right? The emotions play so deeply into moon and your moon cycle. So having that connection, I could certainly see how that plays in, or even like if there's a mother wound, like what's the
Mm-hmm.
relationship with your mom, and kind of any wounds around that and how that plays in. Because anyone who's been on my moon calls, right, my emotional healing sessions knows that um, that's the work that we dive into, right? The emotions can get held in your physical body, right? So it is very much so connected. But again, like help me demolish my ignorance in this area. So if anyone has experienced painful menstrual bleeding, I'm curious to know if that resonates with you, or if it doesn't, and you're like, no, I'm super connected and intuitive, but I
Mm-hmm.
have this going on, feel free to message me and I'd love to have a conversation with you. But
I
I'm
love
hearing
that you
about your.
brought that up. I definitely think it's probably both. I think that there can definitely be a lot of healing. I agree with you that emotions are held in the body. And if we're not letting ourselves connect with our feminine energy at all, with our womb space, it's going to be harder to heal those parts of ourselves. And I also believe that sometimes there's physical things going on that we don't have the emotional control over. So if anyone does want to share their experience, I definitely see how like both could be true, and healing the emotions and connecting with this space, even aligning your cycle with the moon, I think can help to, I saw something about like all these things are considered normal, like period pain, but it's not actually normal. It's just because we're so removed from connecting with those spaces and healing those spaces and knowing how to honor our hormones rather than just like, oh, this isn't even happening. So yeah, that ignorance I think does create more disease in the body, disease being like the painful experiences that we're having.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you were grabbing Layla, I mentioned a little bit how I haven't dove specifically into this topic that you're diving into today of connecting the moon with the menstrual cycle. But one thing I am aware of is that when we bleed, right, women are more intuitive. That is our
Mhm.
intuitive time. That is when these divine downloads come in very strongly. And historically, women would gather together around their menstrual and bleeding time. I believe they held things like the red tent, right? And
Mhm.
they would, come together in this intuitive space, this community space. Um, and, that's a powerful practice that I know I get into with moon circles and you get into with moon circles, and this powerful time of rest, like you've mentioned. And really, that's a lot of what I talk about in this group is like that is so essential, that rest and silence and peace time to strengthen your awareness muscle, to strengthen your intuition, because that's when you can hear yourself, your inner dialogue, and your intuition more clearly when you can make time and hopefully build a consistent practice with that restful, intuitive
Yeah.
time.
I love the red tent, that whole theory. So something I started looking into kind of what is the history of menstrual cycles, and actually the red tent like is way like biblical ages, but if we look still back in time but a little more recently, a lot of cultures have outcasted women when they're bleeding, so they're not allowed to be in the home, they're not allowed to like, um, they're just seen, they have to be removed from all situations. And I believe this kind of reminds me of like the witch wound, but I think it's that power that women have, like you said, the veil between the physical world and the spiritual world is said to be thinner when we're bleeding. And so it's powerful. And I think that in a patriarchal world, that can be threatening. And so returning back to this ancient wisdom that is within us, like I think it's so important for me to say that this information is not new. I did not come up with this. We actually have it all within us, but we've been so removed from it that we don't have the knowledge of it. So we're not living in alignment with it because we weren't taught it, but it's there. It's already there. It's just about us tapping into it.
And remembering it or
Yes,
re-remembering
like a
it.
re-remembering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So I want to share more about how the moon does connect to the menstrual cycle, because that is what I love working with the moon in this way. So I'm just going to start by breaking them down. I do have a free guide that I'll be giving with this class. So you can take notes, of course, but don't feel like you have to keep up with notes because I'm going to give you a document with it. So starting with the new moon, that is representative of our bleed time. Like we've talked about, the bleed time can be a more spiritual time. And for many people, the new moon can be a more spiritual time as well. This is a time that is also related to the season of winter. So like the moon cycle, there's 4 phases. Like our menstrual cycle, there's 4 phases. And like the season, there's 4 phases. So it's more of a yin time. It's more of a passive time. It's a rest time. And yeah, in a patriarchal society that we at least me, and I think many people have tied our self-worth to how much we're getting done and how productive we are. Resting feels foreign and resting feels unsafe. It feels unsafe to slow down. And that is exactly what this time is for. It is for slowing down so we can show up stronger. So the crone archetype, and just to give a little overview of the archetypes, I mean, I'm not sure the official definition, but they were created by Carl Jung, and it's like a persona to feel into. So when we're talking about the archetypes, there's always going to be like lower vibrations and higher vibrations of them. And the higher vibrations of the crone archetype, she's the old wise woman. So she has lived her life. She's at the end of her life cycle. She doesn't need to prove herself to anyone. Like think of Betty White. Like she just passed away. So I think she's a great example. But she knew she didn't need to prove herself to anyone. She knew she had a ton of wisdom to hand off to people, but not so much caring about their validation back. Like she can just hand off the wisdom without feeling like she has to prove it to them, that it's worth them listening to. That's kind of, and the old wise woman, she's slowing down. She's moving slow, and she's knowing that that is what she needs in this time. Where the lower vibrations of this include not slowing down and then getting burnt out, or being afraid to share with other people what you have to share in fear that, they don't want to receive it. They're not ready to receive it. Coming up with stories rather than just kind of being clear in your self-worth. So this is all related to the new moon time and the crone archetype, the time of winter, which I think the seasons are a really nice way to feel into this, because when I think of winter, I think of, what's going on? I think of cold, cuddled up at home, not very social, like wanting to be inside. Do you want some more milk maybe? Wanting to be inside, doing less. And that's the same with the bleed time. So we are she's distracting me a little. We are wanting to be more introspective. And I'm going to dive in a little bit more of what's good for each of these phases, but this is a phase to review and reflect on how things are going. So then we move into spring, maiden, the new moon, and the new moon is dark, and then the waxing moon. So the light is starting to grow, and that is exactly what's happening with our energy too. Our energy starts to grow as the light of the moon starts to come back. So it's such a beautiful reflection of what's happening within us. And the waxing moon is related to the archetype of maiden, and the maiden archetype is the young woman. So she is like, picture yourself about 18. Like, this is when your period starts until you enter the mother, the queen archetype. So this is a time where you trying a lot of new things, wanting to have fun, but also able to get a lot done. Like you have a lot of energy to do things, to move forward with projects, but you want to have fun. Like no 18-year-old wants to just work and not also play and have fun. And so I think that's an important message about this phase. And then when we look at spring, oh, I shouldn't have kissed you. You got lipstick on you. When we look at spring, everything's coming alive. Everything's waking up. We're starting to come out of our little hibernation nest, and we're starting to see people. So this is a more extroverted energy. Then we move into the full moon, which is the queen archetype, also can be known as the mother archetype. I will briefly say why I use queen archetype instead of mother archetype is that in our society, a lot of times the mother is seen as someone who gives. And depending on our relationship with our own mothers, there might be some trouble connecting with that archetype. Where the queen, how I like to see it, is she sits on her throne. She still nurtures everyone. She takes care of her community, but she knows that she is just as worthy of that self-care and that nurturing. And she doesn't have to prove herself. So if we're looking at our menstrual cycle, this is ovulation. This is when you're feeling good. It's the peak. This is the peak of your energy as well. This is when you've been working your way up through maiden, through that waxing moon, through spring to summer. And summer, you're now, for those who manifest with the moon, we're not going to really get into that in this call, but Kaitlyn is a great resource for that. But the full moon is when you're like, wow, look at everything I created. Look at this abundance of harvest that I've gotten. All those seeds that I planted are now like blooming. So summer, when I think of summer, I think of going out and seeing a lot of people, but also getting tired because like the sun is hot. So you're like doing a lot, but you're also like needing time to rest. So it's really like I like to say the peaks and the valleys. Learning how to ride those in Queen can be really important. So you can give to others, but also still care for yourself. So that's our full moon. It's a very social time. And then to wrap up, we have the waning moon, which is when your energy is starting to decrease again. So again, the light of the moon is total dictator of this, but we hit our peak of the full moon, and then the light starts to go back down and our energy also starts to go back down. This is the archetype Enchantress, and Enchantress archetype is very unapologetic. It's related to the premenstrual phase of our cycle. So this is when, if you have physical discomforts with your period, this is when they start to come up. So not a lot of tolerance for other people. This is a time that you can set those boundaries that have maybe felt hard to set because you're really focused on, okay, this is what I need in this time. And if we don't give that to yourself, like I said, there's always the low vibration and the high vibration. If you're not giving that to yourself, you can be really snappy. You can be low patience. This is, yeah, a time where you just don't have a lot of bandwidth for other people's crap. like, okay, I'm gonna pause there in case you have anything to add because I know I just went through a lot.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and when you were talking, I was thinking, oh my God, this is beautiful because I didn't realize the archetypes that are associated with each phase, right? But the one I was resonating with this year, with last month with the abundance challenge and things, was Queen, the Queen archetype. And that's like exactly where I am in my life right now, and like embodying that. So I was just saying, oh my God, that's beautiful. So drop in the comments for us, is there an archetype that you're resonating with right now? Like what phase do you feel connected with? Is it the crone? Is it the queen? Is it the maiden? Right? What was the last one?
Enchantress.
Enchantress.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What are you resonating with? Drop it in the comments. Let us know. And then this gives you guidance too, right? For what to lean into, right? For what you're craving, or to just be present with the cycle that you're at. I was going to say to help you shift into another cycle or phase, but honestly, to be where you're at, to notice where you're at, to love yourself where you're at, because it's going to change. It's going to change on its own and it's going to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, which one did you resonate with most? Drop it in the comments.
Yeah, great question. And yeah, something that that came up for me when you were speaking is that there really is gifts in all of them. So
Yeah.
in that tracker that I'll be providing you, one of the things that I wrote down for you to track is, what is the message that this phase or this archetype is trying to share with me right now? Because you were talking about, okay, how do I shift into the next archetype? But then you kind of caught yourself, but well, what is this actually showing me right now? And then maybe how can I support this phase that I'm in so I can show up stronger or even better in that next cycle. So
Especially for those of us who feel stuck. Like I hear this all the time from
yeah.
my clients, from my community members, like I feel stuck. Okay, well, let's bring some awareness with where you're at right now. What are you feeling right now? What's coming up right now? Let's love on that right now. So, yes, bring some presence to that.
Sarah, you said maiden. I love that. So I'm curious, is that like the one you feel most aligned with, or is that the one that you like the most? I'll just touch on one thing, is that our society tends to prefer Maiden, because Maiden
Love the
is
maiden.
the young wild woman. Um, she is the one that's getting things done. She is the one that is flirty and young and attractive, and that is this is my work too, is I would put everything into Maiden. So I'm going to talk in a second about like how to actually structure your life around these phases. But I used to pile all the hard shit into Maiden, because she had the energy to do it. But she, like, what 18-year-old, like I was saying, wants to get thrown with all the hard work without any of the fun, without any of like the play? No, that's when we lead to burnout. So I did this for a long time. When I started learning about these phases, I was like, okay, I'm going to plan all the things I need to do into that maiden phase. And then I would not necessarily want to do all of them, and I wouldn't get them all done. And then I would beat myself up because I was like, Maiden's going. I feel myself starting to shift into Queen, and Queen's not going to want to do this, and I have to wait a whole nother month before I take care of these things. So remembering that, one, there's gifts in every single phase, and two, we can do everything in every phase. It just has a different flair. So I like to give the example of like for entrepreneurs here, if you were to do a live stream, ideally, and I mean, this is different for everything. Everything I'm saying here is generalization, and that you're going to need to learn about your own cycle. But ideally, we would want to do our live streams during Queen, because that's the ovulation time. That's when we're feeling like the most attractive. That's when it's easiest to sell. But if you show up in Crone and do a live stream, maybe you're speaking a little bit slower. Maybe you are giving this information from a really deep, intuitive place. If you're showing up in Maiden and doing a live stream, maybe you're talking fast. I'm in Maiden right now. I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but I kind of planned this purposely in Maiden because I have the energy and because I'm feeling, like confident in myself. So that's that Maiden energy. I'm moving my hands a lot. The Queen energy is, again, really knowing my worth, asking for what I need. And then Enchantress is very the hard truths, unapologetic. She's going to tell you it how it is, and she's not necessarily going to care if it resonates with you or not. Like, this is what it is. I'm passing on this truth to you. You let it sit with you how it sits with you. So my point is that, maybe you show up differently in all those phases, but that doesn't mean you can't do things in all those phases. So if I start to say, oh, this is a good time to schedule this, this is a good time to schedule this, and you start thinking, oh no, now I need to cancel things because I scheduled my kid's birthday party when I'm bleeding, or I scheduled this in a phase that is not the right phase. This information is not meant to put you in a box. It's just about work. As you get to know your own cycle, how can you work with it to schedule your life so things feel the most easy and flowy, but you can do it all. You can always do it all in any phase. It's just finding what works best for you. Okay. Let's dive in then to, like, again, these are just suggestions that I have of what you could schedule into. And if anybody has like a certain task that they're doing all the time and they want suggestions of like when would be the best time to do that, feel free to drop that in. But Missy, I might move to the couch. Try to feed her some.
And this
Sorry.
is perfect timing too, like I was mentioning for this, right? We're in the waxing crescent phase and the waxing moon phase. So figuring out how to plan, figuring out how to take action towards your goals, like this is the energy of what we're in right now. This is the current moon phase, literally right now. So I have a free resource guide to dive into that a little bit more. If you'd like that, just type success in the comments. It's about planning for success around the waxing moon, but Shelbey's going to dive into this right now, specifically the moon cycle and the menstrual cycle.
Yeah, I love that you made that specifically about the waxing moon, because how we see so many resources that are like the full moon and the new moon, which is great. But the waxing moon is technically the moon to get things done. And I love that you're getting people to type success, because that is the phase where we can start to take that action and like move things forward. So again, I'll start with the new moon, the crone. This is your time of rest. And like me and Kaitlyn already said, this can be the time where your intuition is really activated. So if you're trying to birth a new idea into the world, this is a beautiful time to slow down and let those intuitive downloads come. But it's so important that we do that without expectation, and we do it with a sense of surrender, because if you're trying to force the ideas to come, that's not relaxing, that's not surrendering, that's not giving the stillness. But if you can slow down, really have sacred self-care in this time, and when ideas come to you, because this tends to be a time when a lot of ideas do come up, grab your journal, grab your voice note, whatever way you like to track down ideas. And this is not the time to take action on those ideas. This is just the time to take note of what's coming up for you. So this is a beautiful time to visualize, how do I want this next year to go? How do I want this next cycle to go? This is a good time for those meditations that maybe get you to like the future self meditations. It's a good time to do your divination practices, your rituals, your ceremonies, that mirror work of looking at yourself. This is a good time for shadow work. The moon is dark in the sky. And if you need to show up and teach others, this can be a good time to pass on that wisdom. Like I said, thinking of that old wise woman kind of passing on her knowledge. So this one can be hardest for a lot of people, because pretty much what I'm telling you to do is pause, step away from your business, step away from your to-do list, and allow yourself to just be, even if it's just for the days that you're bleeding, or if you're not bleeding like me. I usually do like 2 days before the new moon and 2 days after the new moon, where I just allow some spaciousness. And I can still work on my business, and what that looks like for me is reviewing, how did the last cycle go, how do I want the next cycle to go? Not necessarily these action orientated things, but more of reflection and review. So let me know if anyone has questions about that phase specifically before I move into the next one, and I'll try to.
And you could feel resistance in this area and resting, because it's a sort of reprogramming that needs to happen, right? It could be a very well engraved pattern, and it helps to recognize it as that, just a pattern, something you've done over and over and over and over again, that your worth is amounted in what you can do, that you have to do something, you need to be go, go, go all the time. That could be a pattern for you. So know that just because you're uncomfortable in a certain area or action doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, right? Maybe get curious about the resistance there, and then welcome kind of the uncomfortableness, because that's just evidence that you're growing.
I love that. And I mean, it totally makes sense that there's resistance, because this conditioning runs deep. Like, this is the hustle mentality world that we live in, that it, like I said, we're not even supposed to acknowledge we have a period. We're supposed to keep it a secret, hide it, and push through it. Okay. Oh, and then when I do give ideas for movement practices and how you can nourish yourself with food during these phases as well, I will just say that this is slowing down. So this is nature walks. This is maybe the yin practice, or it's doing nothing. If you are someone who moves your body all the time, this is that ideal time to rest. Okay. So we have that dark moon, that new moon, and the light is starting to come back. We are moving in from winter to spring, and we're moving into that maiden archetype. This is when all those ideas that you wrote down in that intuitive time, in that rest time, this is where you can start to review those and be like, okay, which ones do I actually want to take action on? Where do I actually want to move forward with this energy that I have, with this, and I love to call it inspired action, because it's not choosing the things that I think I should do. It's choosing the ones that feel good and feel fun and that I want to run forward with. So this is a great time to do the tasks that do require a little more mental energy, but also remembering to have fun. How can you make your work fun? How can you make the things that feel like you have to do, how can you bring a little more play to them? So some ways that I'm doing that is like turning on music, or I've been really playing with scents lately, having scents that kind of just like give me a little pep while I have to do the things that maybe feel a little harder. Inspired action, yes. Yeah, I feel like those are the things that are people are going to jive with the most too, are the things that we feel most inspired about moving forward, not the things that we have resistance to and that we're kind of like white knuckling. And then moving into full moon, queen, ovulation phase. This is summer. So this is a great time for anything social. So if you know that you have a party that you want to plan, or an event that you want to plan, this is a great time to plan it in this time. If you are selling a program, this is a great time to ask for the sale. Like, you are the queen, you know your worth, you know your value. This is a good time to ask for what you deserve. So selling is good. Also, like for me, what really comes up and how I started to notice that I was in the queen mother phase was that I wanted to clean. I wanted my space to be like comfortable and nourishing, and I wanted to take care of like the people in my family. So I want to cook more. I want to like make wholesome meals for them that we can all sit around the table and enjoy together. So that's not so much the entrepreneur side of it, but like, just where are you bringing this nurturing energy, whether it's to your community, to your followers, or is it to your family and to your home life? But that nurturing, caring mother quality. So I put dating too. Like, if you're someone who is single, this is a great time to date, because I know dating can be very anxiety ridden, going on new dates. So if you can schedule those when you're in that ovulation time, when you're in that queen energy, you are going to feel more like sure of yourself and certain in who you are. And then
I feel like you attract
yeah,
like your mate to you, like it's those pheromones, like we're
yeah,
not even like aware of, but are definitely sensed.
totally. I know.
And
I
part
don't
of your
even.
power and knowing your power, I think, is delegating tasks and asking for help and letting people
Mm,
help you. Like that's queen status too, I think.
yes, thank you for bringing that up. That is so huge, and that's again the lower vibrations of this is to do it all yourself and not ask for any help. So shifting into that queen energy is, yeah, asking for the support that you need, and that's not easy. So knowing that if there, again, like Kaitlyn was saying, if there's resistance there, that's an edge, that's a growth edge for you. Okay, and then lastly, we have Enchantress, which is the waning moon. So again, maybe your energy is starting to decrease. This is the luteal phase or the pre-menstruation phase. So our energy is starting to go down, but this is a great time to wrap up projects and really prepare yourself. Sorry, Leila's talking a lot. Really prepare yourself for rest. How can you kind of get your ducks in a row so that you can allow yourself to rest during that new moon phase, during that crone time, that bleed time? This is also a great time to write the controversial posts. So if you have a truth that you know it's true to you and you want to share it with the world, but you might get some backlash and it might be a little crunchy for some people, this is the time to do that, because you're going to feel more certain in your power and your truth and not be as influenced by maybe the naysayers or the people who don't agree with you. This is also, so, I mean, again, everybody's going to show up differently in this, but I find this is a good time to have hard conversations and set boundaries. But in saying that, you're not always open to hear what the other person has to say. So it's a good time to kind of maybe start the hard conversation and then say, can we table this and come back to it? But like this has been on my mind and I've been wanting to say this to you for a while. So I'm going to say it now while I have that courage. But maybe I'm not ready to actually dive into the conversation. And like that gets to look like however you need it. And maybe you do have the capacity to also have that conversation. But this is a time where we can speak up for ourselves. So if you know, like right away as I'm saying this, if you know there's a boundary that you've been avoiding setting, this phase may give you that kind of courage to set that boundary with whoever it is in your life that you need to set it with. And movement practices, again, we're starting to slow down a little bit. So maybe it's like a gentle flow class, or maybe it's a hike, or maybe it's things that you're still moving your body, but you're allowing the space to feel where you're at, because your energy may be starting to decrease during this time, or you may start having some physical discomfort if that's something you experience. Okay. Let me know how this is all resonating. Is there a task that you're like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to start trying to put that in this phase of the schedule? Is there a task that comes to mind that you're like, oh, Shelby, where should I put this? And again, these are all just invitations that I'm giving you. You got to see what works for you. But I'd love to offer any insight if there is.
Yeah, just drop in the comments like what task you've been wanting to do, but you're having some resistance around. So I saw some questions yesterday in the card pull post. So if some of those ideas come back up for you, just drop it in the comments here and we can get Shelby's input on that. This would be a great time. I saw a lot of things just generally related to like finding focus and organization, which of course makes sense because we're in that Capricorn energy right now. A lot of people wanting to get organized and find a plan. But yeah, anyone listening now or on the replay, like I know we'll come back and try to support you as best we can. Drop it in the comments now.
Yeah, that sounds great. I will definitely check in. So anybody watching the replay, please feel free to still add in your comments. Ala, you said, I want to know what to do with exercise wise. Yeah, so I do include some ideas in the PDF that I'm going to drop. But looking at your energy, I would say the new moon, rest, or a meditative walk outside, or a yin practice, or a gentle restorative practice. And then as your energy starts to increase, the maiden is the time, like cardio or the things that are more stamina, or trying something new. Maybe you've like wanted to be trying a pole dancing class, or you've wanted to try something new.
Belly
Maiden is that,
dancing.
yes. Maiden is definitely that energy to like, okay, I've had my eyes on this, but I've been too scared. She's got the courage to try the new thing. Queen is that peak. So while you're still in that peak, that can be a good time for lifting weights, or like going on a hike, or doing not so much stamina focused, but like more grit and more power focused. Maybe a
Power, like HIIT workouts, or like you said, heavy lifting or something.
Yes, exactly. And then for an enchantress, you're starting to slow down. So I like doing like gentle flow yoga, or like a hike, but like moving kind of slowly, like an easy hike, but slowing down on the movement during enchantress.
Or even something you're really familiar with, like that's well practiced for you, I feel like would be great for like the enchantress vibe.
Yes, totally agree. I also just saw a really cool app called Genis, if you're interested. They give you workouts for your cycle as well. So that's just an option if anyone's looking for a further resource. But for me, I tend to check in with what I need, and base it on that. Like check in with your energy and what's going to feel the most nourishing for this cycle at this time. So I wanted to touch a little bit on how to recognize where you are in your cycle. Hello, you are noisy. This is where we can use those archetypes. So if you're checking in and you're feeling, okay, I have low patience right now. I'm feeling really irritable. Maybe you're an enchantress. I mean, maybe you're not, but like these are just some kind of cues that you can use to start to kind of check in with yourself. And be patient with yourself as you're just getting started. If you're not someone that's tracked your cycle at all, you may think you're an enchantress, and then the next day you think you're a maiden. And that's okay, because we're still, oh yes, I can spell out that app. It's Jennis, Genis. But it's going to take a while to see how each sits with you. Like I said, I've made a lot of generalized concepts here of what the characteristics are for each archetype, but they're going to look different for everyone. So getting to know yourself, and I provide a tracker where you can start to ask yourself some of these questions of what's coming up for you. And even like, for example, if I decided that Queen was the time that I want to do my live streams, and then I start doing them during Queen, and I'm like, oh, that actually doesn't really feel good. I would rather like be taking a bath or spending time with my family, and I would rather do that in Maiden. So let's try Maiden next month and see how that feels. So it's really all trial and error. And I want to touch on these layers. Sometimes it's confusing for me to explain them. So if anyone needs more clarity, let me know. But layer one is our body. So what's happening on our physical level? Let's say, for example, I'm bleeding right now. I'm not, because I haven't bled in a long time. But let's say I was bleeding right now. Then we have the moon. So the moon is another layer on top. So the moon is waxing right now. So I'm feeling really internal because I'm bleeding. I'm not really wanting to be around a lot of people. But then there's that waxing moon energy, which is more extroverted and wants to take action. So they're starting to blend together. And then we have even another layer, which is the season. So we're in the season of winter right now. So that kind of goes with my bleeding. So maybe I'm feeling more of that introverted energy more than I'm feeling that waxing moon energy. But it's all just layers. And that is why it's going to look different every time. Enchantress is going to show up different every time. And based on our hormones too, sometimes it's going to last for 5 days, sometimes it's going to last for 10 days. And so we really have to have grace with ourselves as we're planning things into these phases. I just wanted to remind us that we're not putting ourselves in boxes because it is going to change. And that's where we're doing this masculine and feminine energy, and we're learning to pair them both, because the masculine, that's the work, the getting things done, the self-discipline. And then the feminine is like, okay, well, I said I was going to do this, but maybe I don't want to show up in that exact way, or I don't want it to look exactly like that. And allowing some flow, allowing some fluidity, like allowing things to change a little bit. So I think
Flexibility, because the masculine can also be like, okay, this is the schedule and this is what it is and this is how it's going to stay, right? It's like that 9 to 5 vibe, Monday through Friday, when really, especially as women, right, like Shelby's talking about today, we ebb and flow. Our energy waxes and wanes, just like the light of the moon waxes and wanes, right? And also, there's no perfection, right? We're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming to get to know ourselves. We're aiming to dive in deep. We're aiming to just sit and ask ourselves, like Shelby was saying, just ask yourself, okay, where am I at today, right? So you can build your awareness muscles, so you can strengthen your intuition, so you can get familiar with these phases for yourself, because that's what it's really about. It's a self-internal practice that's going to empower you to use it in other areas of your life.
Yeah, exactly. It's all just more self-awareness. And I think that can be hard when we live in such a, like, when we've been in our masculine for so long, not having such a clear path or such a, like, this is what it is all the time, that can feel hard. So I honor that, but learning to lean into the feminine has so many gifts. It allows us to be okay with things changing. It allows us to have that nurturing, that more calm energy, to be able to meet people where they're at. Yeah, it's really this balance of getting things done, but finding the way that feels most nourishing and good for us.
And for anyone who's practiced EFT, this just came to my mind, right? We start EFT, even though, right, even though I feel anxious, even though I feel tired, I still love and honor myself deeply and completely, right? It's that kind of vibe. Like, even though, yes, this is going on, I still love, honor, and accept myself.
Yeah, I love that. EFT is so powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's mostly what I wanted to cover. So I wanted to still open it up if anyone did have questions that have come up. Feel free to drop them. And if you are watching the replay, please feel free to drop them as well. I do have a free resource for you that I am very excited to share. So it is going to share each of the archetypes that we talked about today, the attributes for each of them, some movement ideas, some nourishment ideas, and how to plan for each of those phases. And then I give you these trackers, and one's a daily tracker and one's a nightly reflection. And so what I do, and this is just an invitation for those who want to start playing with this, is I always have a lot of ideas in my brain. Like I said, I was drawn to this work because I felt like I had an overwhelming to-do list all the time. So I always do a brain dump because I always just feel like there's so much, even if I'm not going to get it all today, I don't want to forget it and I don't want it like in my head. So I put everything down on paper and then I assign it to a phase. And then I check in with where I am, where the moon is, which of that huge list that I just wrote myself, like what are 3 tasks that feel aligned based on where I'm at today? And then letting that be enough. Letting what you do enough. Like I'm dealing with that as a new mom. I can plan to do a million things and I don't have always the capacity or the time, or it's not in my control. And learning to let go of some of that control and go, okay, if I took action on one thing today, what is going to feel the best based on where I am in my cycle, and then can I celebrate that? And then if I do more, that's cool too. But like celebrating each little step that you take. And that I think is one way that we beat procrastination too, is we break it down into little steps. And instead of thinking I need to do more, thinking like, oh, awesome, look at what I just did. Like I rock. Like more celebrating ourselves. And I know that's easier and clean, but I think we need to do that in all the phases.
100%. And for anyone here live or for anyone catching the replay, I'm curious, is there an area specifically of your life where you want to use this energy? Maybe you're like, every area. That's great. Drop that in the comments. But I'm curious, is there a specific area where you really like, okay, yes, I want to try to organize my life in this way, whether it's like your career, right, your finances, your health. I know health is on the a lot of our minds right now with the new year, right? But what is it for you, if anything? Or feel like all areas, you can write that in the comments too. Every area, Bailey says. Yes, I hear that.
Yeah, I hear that too. I think my business was a huge one for me. You probably can tell by the way of some of the things that I've shared in the planning, but yeah, I just think we put so much pressure on ourselves as entrepreneurs to do everything all the time, and being able to figure out when to do things that actually feels the best and most nourishing rather than thinking I need to do it all the time has been so helpful for me.
Absolutely. And if you're here live or catching the replay and you're resonating with this work, what Shelby does or what I do, and you're ready to dive in deeper, you're ready to get to know yourself and honor yourself a lot more and get into this flow state, right? And embrace that divine feminine energy. You're ready to reprogram your subconscious mind so that it works for you and you can get rid of some of those old patterns, right? And start to decipher some of the language of your emotions. I would love to hop on a free lunar abundance call with you and dive into this and figure out where exactly you are and kind of where you're headed. So drop lunar in the comments if you're interested and you're really feeling called to dive into this work. And if you're just curious about it, drop lunar in the comments and we can chat. Or maybe your whole body is like saying yes and you're like, feel it, the electricity in your bones and your skin. Drop lunar in the comments and we can connect. And Shelby, would you share with everyone some of the work that you do and how you're called to work with people?
Yeah. So right now, where I'm really putting my energy is into my membership called Your Moon Cycle Membership, where we're diving into all this information, but we're taking it even deeper. We're integrating it. So this month, I am teaching about crone specifically. We have a whole class that's going to be around connecting to your inner winter, connecting to your old wise women. And then with each month, I give a class as well as activation tools to really bring it back to the body, bring it back to the somatic level. So there will be a yoga class and a meditation to go along with that to help you kind of feel into how does the wise woman show up for me. And then I just love community. I love that's what I'm realizing is my superpower, is bringing people together. So we do new moon and full moon circles every single month. And what I just love about those the most is just connecting with women. Like, we're in a pandemic right now, and I've heard so many people say how lonely they feel. And I feel the opposite of that, but that's because I've created these spaces online where like my cup gets filled with connection all the time. And so if that is something that you're craving in your life, let's chat. Maybe this is the space for you, maybe it's not, but I believe that finding your people, being vulnerable is such a big part of that, of connecting with other people. So finding your people to connect with is important. And yeah, I'm happy to let anyone join our membership for a trial offer. So just let me know if that interests you, and you can come give it a try. We have our full moon circle on the 17th, as well as that inner winter class coming up soon.
Yes, community is so important. Just, yeah, like you said, to be vulnerable and show up, especially as women, it's so, so important to feel that connection. And also, like, if you want to manifest, like, energy gets amplified in a circle, which is why we do them around the new moon and full moon. So a lot of you know this if you've been to one of my full moon celebrations, full moon circles. But yeah, and if you haven't tried one before and you're new to this, I highly, highly encourage you to just try one, to just show up, whether it's with Shelbey, whether it's with someone else, whether it's with me, to just show up and see how it presents to you, how you feel about it.
I love that. And I always try to remind people that, like, take what you need from the space. So if that's having the camera off and not sharing at all and just listening and just receiving, that's always okay. And if you want to push your growth edge and be a little vulnerable and turn on the camera and share your full moon releases with us, that's beautiful too. So I just try to remind people that, and I like what Kaitlyn said, like, if you're curious, give it a try, and we can meet you where you're at. Like, okay. This one has been very fussy. But I appreciate everyone's patience while I had Leela, and glad to be in Kaitlyn's group that is so accepting of mamas and us doing this work as mamas, and knowing that that's part of the power of our cycles too, is like we're caring for so many people, and it's important to care for ourselves. And I think that is really what the work me and Kaitlyn are doing, is reminding you that you deserve to take that space to care for yourself. And so I just honor all of you for, whether you're a mama or not, you still have that queen energy in you, that nurturing energy, and I have no doubts that you give a lot of your energy away, and it's so important to remember to refill up your own cup and take care of your energy as well.
100%. I'm so excited that we got to do this today, that we got to show up here today. Thank you, Shelbey, for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. So appreciate you. If anyone has any questions, whether you're live or catching the replay, drop them in the comments. Shelbey and I will visit you and meet you where you're at. Yeah, I'm so excited to move forward. Yeah, with this energy. It's a lovely vibe. Love this group. Love you, ladies.
Thank you, everyone. It was so nice to connect with everyone. Bye, Kaitlyn.
Bye.